The latest Marvel Tokon beta has just concluded, and it already feels like the game has been gone for way too long. Over the course of the weekend, thousands of players were able to get one last taste of the upcoming 4v4 team fighter before launch, and this time with a proper training mode. It was an amazing weekend of fighting games, but it didn't come without its hiccups. Let's just cut right to the chase. You're here because you want to know the answer to the question, is Marvel Tokon shaping up to be a good game? Or is it just not the Marvel vs. Capcom / Dragon Ball FighterZ sequel you've been dreaming of? Saludos mi gente, greetings everyone, my name is Dream King and today, we are talking about the final Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls beta. But before we get started, please like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell if you enjoy my content. Your support helps out a ton and it is always very much appreciated. Now, let's get into the video. I want to start this out by talking about how good this game looks. The visuals are incredible, man. Character models and animations look fantastic, the comic book theme is super stylish and done so well, and there is a ton of attention to detail put into everything, from the voice lines to the characters' mannerisms. Funny enough, Marvel Tokon reminds me a lot of Dragon Ball FighterZ in terms of its presentation, and the care the developers have clearly taken with such precious source material. I didn't say the gameplay is like Dragon Ball FighterZ, relax, okay? I just said that both games have insanely good presentation. The character designs are amazing in this game. Every character I've played so far is a ton of fun to play, has some really interesting tools, and it feels like there's so much to figure out with each of them. The changes to assists and how combos work have opened things up quite a bit more than the previous beta. People complained a lot during the last beta, saying the game has no sauce. They were wrong, but those complaints pushed Arc System Works to make some big changes to how unique assists work in combos, and from what I've played, I'm a big fan of the changes so far. I'd say the most significant change made to the game is that you can now call unique assists in combos when your point character is in the middle of an action. Previously, you could only call them if your point fighter wasn't attacking, and calling an assist whilst in the middle of an attack would have your teammate perform a universal strike assist instead of their unique ones. Now though, it works more like Marvel vs. Capcom, but it still doesn't feel too much like an MVC clone thanks to the other mechanics in the game. And while the new assist changes are great, they don't come without flaws, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It felt like the community did a full 180 on the game during this beta, because not only did those changes allow for new combo routes and tech to explore, but Arc System Works also made sure to add a training mode to the beta this time. I have to say, the developers must have really learned from that last beta because not only was there a training mode this time, but it was an insanely robust one with a ton of options to work with. It's likely that this was actually the launch version's full training mode. I feel like Arc System Works took all of the negative feedback they got last time and said, alright, bet, then came in with the intent to shut all the naysayers up, and they did, mostly. Some people still complained about the game, with a few valid complaints going around in my opinion, but as you would expect, a large portion of it was, the game still doesn't play exactly like Marvel vs. Capcom or Dragon Ball FighterZ, so it needs to change / it sucks. Which is nonsense, dude, come on. ArcSys did an excellent job with this beta. Again, mostly, and again, more on that later. What's crazy is that there was so much to learn and dig into with this beta that 99% of players, myself included, didn't even get to experiment much with the tag system. The majority of tech and match footage shared over the course of the weekend focused on point characters and what assists can help them do. But it wasn't until pretty much the end of the beta where some real significant tech for tagging was discovered and people started looking more into that aspect of the game. So while there's still so much to find with just the fundamentals of point characters, assists, and team composition, we can also look forward to a whole other layer of the meta in tagging being explored a lot more once the game launches. One thing I found really interesting about Marvel Tokon is that the 4v4 team format is one that seems like it would be insanely overwhelming up front, but the way in which ArcSys handles it is actually really smart. Where traditional tag fighters equip each character with their own individual life bars, Marvel Tokon has a squad of 4 all sharing one single health bar. Some people don't like this concept because, again, it's not Marvel vs. Capcom, so change it. But now that I've had some quality time with the game, about 34 hours of playtime, and feel like I got a decent grasp on how it fundamentally works, I actually think that design choice was low-key kinda brilliant, and here's why. One of the biggest issues that plagues tag fighters at their core is that players are expected to learn 2 to 3 characters at a time, and whether you like it or not, you're going to be using those characters in battle. Getting comfortable playing one character in a fighting game can already be a daunting task, but having to learn how to play up to 3 characters right from the jump, especially for newcomers and less experienced players, can be a nightmare. Fighting games already have the stigma attached to them that they're too hard for people to learn, and tag fighters can be some of the most demoralizing fighting games to try and pick up, largely due to having multiple characters to manage at the same time. While I personally would encourage all players to stick with it and keep playing, I can also totally understand new players being overwhelmed by that concept. But in Marvel Tokon, having a unified life bar for all 4 characters means you don't necessarily have to play as multiple characters in a match. In fact, the game encourages you to focus on your point character with just one backup character as support to start, and you unlock the rest of your squad as the match progresses, either by losing a round or using the wall break and wall splat mechanics. That's not to say you won't want to unlock your other squad mates as quickly as possible, because doing so gives you access to more assists, which means bigger and better combos, better pressure and mix-ups, and more juggling pins to throw at your opponent. But in all of that, you can very well only ever play your point character and strictly use the rest of your team as assists, at least here in the early days of the game. But I imagine that will carry less experienced players further without making them feel like they're drowning from frame 1. The meta will undoubtedly shift to using tags for combos and mix-ups at high level, so the end goal for every player will definitely be to learn that stuff. But with how Marvel Tokon's fundamental gameplay system is structured, it feels like newcomers can absolutely focus on just one character and how their assists work, then move up from there for a much more measured and step-by-step approach to learning, which is awesome. That's exactly how I felt myself learning how to play the game over the course of the beta weekend. And that was a much more pleasant experience than having 3 characters dropped on my head from the beginning and being expected to be competent with all 3 right away. Outside of all of that, the game is a lot of fun. I spent most of my time playing and learning Green Goblin, and he is incredible. I'm planning on making my impressions of Green Goblin its own video because there's a lot to talk about. But the TLDR is that Arxis absolutely cooked with his design. Seriously, I pray that whoever designed that character finds the cold side of their pillow every single time they seek it. The first few hours of matches I played in the beta felt really clunky and slow. I swear like half of my inputs just wouldn't come out, and when I tried to move around and establish pressure or maneuver around my opponent's attacks, the game just was not responding to what I was inputting. Based on some of the complaints I saw about the game on social media, it seems that a lot of players were having similar experiences. At first, I thought it was the game, but as I played and got more comfortable, it became clear that it was just unfamiliarity on my part. The game does feel slower in how you do things in a lot of areas, but I believe that's largely because these team fighters tend to be played very fast, and that's how we'd naturally expect to play them. Something like an air dash heavy in Marvel Tokon requires that the heavy be pressed later in the dash, and it won't come out if you do it at a speed that would typically work in other tag fighters. And this appears to be an intentional design choice that is likely in place to better manage the chaos of 4v4 battles, and we see it in other areas of the game as well. I noticed that this same idea is also used in ground recovery wake-up timing, and at first I really did not like how it felt. When you recover on the ground after a knockdown, there is this abnormally long wake-up window where you can't hit the opponent and they're locked in the wake-up animation. Visually, it doesn't really look like a long window of time, but when you try to go for meaty attacks or try to throw the opponent on their wake up, the timing you'd normally expect to use here is completely thrown off. In my early matches, I was outright missing normals in these situations, a lot. And even when I thought I delayed long enough and went for a throw, I'd still whiff and the opponent would punish me. But the more I played and the more I think on it now, I believe this might also just be both another case of not being familiar with the timing and the flow of the game, and I think the developers made this intentional design choice because they expect players to use assists for these Oki situations, and people need a little extra time to breathe here. Still, I want to play more so I can get a better feel for it because, based on what I experienced with these wake-up timings, I'm not entirely sure what to think about them yet. But there is one concrete complaint I do have about Marvel Tokon that I think needs to be fixed. For some reason, the input reader struggles to register DP motions. DP motions aren't something I typically struggle with, and throughout the entire course of this beta, I just could not get them out consistently, both on pad and leverless. Sometimes they worked and I felt like I could do them. Other times I'd sit in training mode and fail the input 10 times in a row. It was so bad that I resorted to just using the quick skill option to get Green Goblin's pumpkin bombs out because dealing less damage with them was a fair trade-off for them actually coming out when I needed them. And I noticed this issue with every character that I played. It was the same deal for Wolverine and Magic as well. I really hope that's fixed by launch. To add to this, I noticed that calling assists also felt more difficult than it should have in a lot of situations. The timing to actually get assists out during block strings or in some combo scenarios felt really tight, like you could only call it properly during brief, specific windows of time during your normals or special moves. I did find that I could get them out more consistently by essentially rolling my finger from the attack button to the assist button really fast, almost like a plink back in Street Fighter 4. But even then, that felt way too demanding for something as common and necessary as calling assists during block strings and combos. For this issue, I'd like to get more time with the game before calling for changes, but it's something I definitely felt during my time with the beta that I know others were struggling with too, so it's worth keeping an eye on. The other major problem I and a lot of other players had with this beta was the game's performance on PC. For me, the game refused to run if I tried to use OBS with it, and other players reported all kinds of performance issues from frame drops to poor performance even on extremely low graphics settings. But at the time I'm writing this script, we just got a tweet from the official Marvel Tokon account that says many of the issues players experienced with the PC version of the game are already being worked on, so that's great to hear. Honestly, I had a lot more gripes with the game on day one of the beta than I do now. Even when writing the script for this video and working through my notes from over the weekend, the majority of potential issues I had either went away as I got more comfortable playing the game, or will likely go away as I spend more time with it. My day one experience with this Marvel Tokon beta was vastly different than day 3, and I can see the stark difference in the match footage I recorded of myself playing over the beta period. I enjoyed Marvel Tokon a lot back during the previous beta, and now, here at the end of this beta period, I just can't seem to stop thinking about it. This game looks great, is fun as hell to play, has one of the craziest and coolest fighting game characters ever made in Green Goblin, and best of all, has a roster of unique and interesting characters with a sea of potential to explore and find amazing combos and tech. Some aspects of the game need tightening up, like its input reader when doing DPs, but as much as I tried to find reasonable cons to talk about here, I honestly don't have much. We have barely scratched the surface of what can be done in this game, and the biggest potential issues I came across are ones that very well could go away as we grow more accustomed to how the game is played. And if they do end up being genuine issues, Arc System Works has already shown that they're willing to make changes where needed, and they're already working on the PC performance troubles. So at this point, I think it needs to be August 6th already so we can play some more Marvel Tokon and learn everything we can about it. Did you play in the final Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls beta? If so, what did you think? Let me know how you feel in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please do the liking and the subscribing and all that good stuff. Your support means so much to me and it is very much appreciated. Thanks for watching, y'all. I will catch you in the next one.